You know that one specific fantasy we all have. The one where you're sitting at your desk, looking at your bank account, and you think, if I could just make an extra $1,000 a month, everything would be different. You convince yourself that your stress, your anxiety, that tight feeling in your chest every time a bill arrives, it's all just a math problem. You think you're just one promotion away from freedom. But then, ever notice what happens next? You get the raise, you get the bonus, you start making money that would have made past you pass out from excitement. And yet, 6 months later, you look at your savings account and it's staring back at you with the exact same number, 0. Actually, it's usually worse than 0, because now you have nicer stuff, a nicer car, maybe a nicer zip code, but you feel twice as trapped. Here's the thing. You didn't just get unlucky. You didn't just have a bad month. You are the victim of an invisible economic law that keeps 90% of the population poor, regardless of how much they earn. And if you don't understand how to break this law today, it won't matter if you make $50,000 or $500,000. You will always be broke. My name is William, and I spend way too much time thinking about the natural instinct to spend every extra penny you make. If you're someone who feels stuck because the natural instinct to spend every extra penny you make is ruining your progress, be sure to subscribe and like this video if it helps you. Look, today we aren't talking about cutting coupons. We aren't talking about skipping lattes. We are talking about why your brain is hardwired to sabotage your raises and exactly how to fix it before it's too late. In 1955, a British historian named Cyril Northcote Parkinson came up with a concept that was originally meant for bureaucracy. He said, work expands to fill the time available for its completion. Basically, if you give someone a week to finish a project, it takes a week. If you give them a day, it takes a day. But here's what most people don't realize. This law applies directly and brutally to your wallet. Think about a tube of toothpaste. When you buy a brand new tube, how do you act? You're reckless. You squeeze a giant glob onto your brush. If some falls in the sink, you don't care. You wipe it off. You have abundance. But when that tube is almost empty, suddenly you become a chemical engineer. You are flattening that tube against the counter, rolling it up from the bottom, squeezing every last atom of paste out of it to make it last 3 more days. This is Parkinson's law of money. Expenses rise to meet income. When your income is the full tube, you spend recklessly because you feel like there's plenty of space. But the moment that space fills up, you're back to squeezing the tube. Now, you might be thinking, William, I'm not buying yachts, I'm just paying for life. Inflation is high, groceries are expensive, and look, I get that, but that is exactly the trap. Let's look at the math, because the numbers are frankly terrifying, and they prove that this isn't just about inflation. According to a recent report by Lending Club, 60% of millennials earning over $100,000 a year represent that they are living paycheck to paycheck. Let that sink in. You have people making 6 figures, an amount that puts them in the top tier of global earners, and they are one missed direct deposit away from financial ruin. How is that even mathematically possible? Let's take a theoretical guy named Mark. Mark starts out making $40,000 a year. He drives a beat-up Honda Civic, he splits rent with a roommate, he cooks pasta at home, he feels broke, so he grinds. 2 years later, Mark lands a new job. Boom, $75,000 a year, almost double his salary. Now, mathematically, if Mark just kept living his $40,000 lifestyle, he would have $35,000 in surplus cash every single year. In 10 years, investing that surplus into a simple S&P 500 index fund, Mark would be a millionaire. He would be free. But Mark doesn't do that. Mark says, I work hard. I deserve to live alone. So, rent goes from $800 to $2,200.
He looks at his beat-up Honda Civic and thinks, this doesn't fit my new job title. People will think I'm not successful. So he trades in for a leased Audi. Now he has a $600 car payment and his insurance doubles. He stops cooking pasta and starts ordering Uber Eats because, hey, his time is valuable now, right? He starts buying craft beer instead of the cheap stuff. He upgrades his gym membership to the one with the eucalyptus towels. By the end of the month, Mark's expenses haven't just gone up a little. They have risen to exactly match his new $75,000 income. The gap between his income and his expenses is zero. Mark feels richer because his turnover is higher. He touches more money. He acts out the pantomime of a rich person. But his net income, the money he actually keeps, is exactly the same as when he was broke. Mark is running on what we call the hedonic treadmill.
Warm, confident, and clear. Medium pace, crisp pronunciation, brief pauses after numbers. No slang, no hype, no monotone. The hedonic treadmill basically means that as you achieve more success, your expectations and desires rise in tandem. You run faster just to stay in the same place emotionally. But this is where it gets really interesting. There's a deeper psychological trigger here that nobody talks about. It's called the Diderot effect. This comes from Denis Diderot, an 18th century French philosopher. The story goes that Diderot was broke most of his life. Then, a Russian empress bought his library and suddenly he had money. He bought himself a beautiful scarlet robe, but then he noticed something. The robe was so beautiful that his old desk looked like trash next to it. So he bought a new desk. Then the rug looked cheap, so he bought a new rug. Then the chairs didn't match the rug, so he replaced the chairs. Eventually, Diderot was broke again, surrounded by fancy furniture he didn't even really want, writing about how he was the master of his old robe, but the slave of his new one. Does this sound familiar? You buy the new iPhone. Suddenly, your old wired headphones look stupid, so you buy the AirPods. Then you need the Apple Watch to match the ecosystem. You buy the nice house, suddenly your old IKEA furniture looks embarrassing in the new living room, so you go to West Elm. Here's what most people don't realize. Every possession you buy is not an asset, it is a demand for more possessions to match it. This brings us to the biggest lie in personal finance, the sticker price. When you get a raise, you look at the monthly payment of a car or a house and think, I can afford the monthly payment. But you are ignoring the shadow costs. Let's go back to Mark and his Audi. The sticker price is the monthly lease, but because it's a luxury car, it requires premium gas. That's a shadow cost. The tires are larger and cost triple to replace. That's a shadow cost. The insurance is higher. The bigger house? It costs more to heat and cool. It has more square footage to clean. Or more likely, you start paying someone to clean it because your time is too valuable now. It has a bigger lawn to mow. The property taxes are higher. When you succumb to Parkinson's law and upgrade your life, you aren't just spending money once, you are signing a contract with your future self to keep spending money forever, just to maintain the new baseline. You are building a golden cage, and the lock on that cage is your own ego. Now look, I know what you're going to say. You might be thinking, William, stop being so cynical. I worked hard for my raise. Are you saying I should live in a basement and eat beans forever? What is the point of making money if I can't enjoy it? And listen, I get it. I'm not saying you shouldn't enjoy your money. I'm not saying you need to live like a monk. But you have to understand the difference between buying freedom and buying status. Most of us use our raises to buy status. We buy things that signal to our neighbors, our parents, and our coworkers that we made it. We are desperate to validate our hard work by displaying it physically. But true wealth, the kind that lets you sleep at night, is invisible. It's the money you didn't spend. When you see someone driving a $100,000 car, the only thing you know for sure is that they have $100,000 less in the bank than they did before. Or worse, they have $100,000 in debt. If you use your raise to upgrade your lifestyle immediately, you are choosing to look rich rather than be rich. So, how do we actually break this law? Because it is possible. There are people who make $60,000 and retire early, and there are people who make $600,000 and die in debt. The difference isn't the income, it's the system. To break Parkinson's law, you have to trick your own brain. You have to create artificial scarcity. You need to sever the link between your income and your checking account. Here is the step-by-step strategy to make sure your next raise actually makes you rich. Step 1 is the 48-hour freeze. The moment you get a raise or a bonus, do absolutely nothing. Do not browse Zillow, do not look at car configurations, do not calculate how much extra monthly cash flow you have. Emotions are high and financial logic is low. Freeze. Step 2 is to automate the skim. This is the most critical step. If you get a $1,000 a month raise, you need to immediately set up an automatic transfer of $750 into a separate investment account that occurs the day your paycheck hits. If you never see the money in your checking account, you can't spend it. You force yourself to continue living on your old budget, the old toothpaste tube, while your wealth rose in the background silently. You literally hide the money from yourself. Step 3 is the 50% rule. I'm a realist. I know you want to celebrate, so adopt the 50% rule. For every extra dollar you earn, 50% goes to future you, that's investments and savings, and 50% goes to current you, that's lifestyle. If you get a $10,000 bonus, $5,000 goes straight into your S&P 500 index fund or pays off debt. $5,000 goes towards a nice vacation or a new gadget. This way, your lifestyle improves slower than your income. And that gap is where your freedom lives. Here's the brutal truth. If you cannot manage $50,000, you cannot manage $500,000. Money does not change your habits, it magnifies them. If you are a spender when you are poor, you will be a bankrupt spender when you are rich. Lifestyle creep is the reason why lottery winners go broke. It's the reason why NFL players declare bankruptcy 3 years after retiring. They let the toothpaste expand. You have to be smarter than your biology. You have to value your freedom more than you value the validation of strangers who don't even care about your car. The next time you get a raise, don't ask, "What can I buy with this?" Ask yourself, "How many years of freedom can I buy with this?" Because the ultimate luxury isn't an Audi. It's the ability to quit a job you hate because you have 10 years of expenses sitting in the bank. That is real power. If you want to know more about the traps that keep people poor, specifically the hidden costs of car ownership that we touched on today, click this video right here. It'll scare you, but it might save you a fortune. I'm William. Thanks for investing your time.